Welcome back, everybody, to another Kicking Tables. Today, we'd like to welcome Gregory Paul, the creator of Shaka Shredders, a fabulous new card game coming out very, very soon. Greg, thanks for joining the show.
And thank you for the kind endorsement.
You're very welcome. Tico and I have had the opportunity to actually play your game. You were kind enough to send us a preview of it, and our review of it will be coming soon. But why don't you tell us first? Assume we don't know anything about it. Tell us, what is Shaka Shredders?
So first and foremost, Shaka Shredders was a dream. It was a dream that I've had since I was a kid of a modular card game. And I've wanted to do this for a long time, but I never knew how it would look and how it would work. I thought of using stickers. I thought of using just a digital, when apps became popular, much
Right.
after I was a kid, digital card games were popular, and I thought maybe a modular card game would exist best as a soft piece of software that you could run on your phone or your computer or your
Right.
tablet or whatever. But I always liked analog things. I've always been a collector of junk and gadgets and toys.
As geeks and nerds, I think we all are.
Are you guys familiar with something called Crazy Bones from the 90s?
No,
Yeah,
I don't.
I remember.
I'm not.
America, maybe mostly America, or I should say the United States, more so perhaps than Canada. But I have, my wife will tell you, I got way too many of those things. I just love stuff. I'm a bit of a hoarder, so I'm trying to be less of that now, especially during COVID. There's just because you can't even enjoy it. I'm just stuck here with my stuff, and it makes me remember,
Right.
wow, I have
Yep.
too much stuff.
I hear you.
So, but regardless, I've always been a fan of tangible things, and so I said, you know what, this problem might be solvable. A modular card game. And so I bought a bunch of supplies a few years ago. I bought stickers, I bought cardboard, I bought Velcro material and all kinds of fun stuff. And I thought, what would a modular card look like? One of the materials that I bought was magnetized paper-like substance that wasn't quite right, but it was something close to a swap top card as they exist today. And my wife and I experimented, and we created these modular cards. The problem was they couldn't shuffle very well because the magnets were too strong.
Yeah.
And so the question is, how can you make magnets that are strong enough to stay together, but not so strong that you could still shuffle them and they'd feel like cards? So the box that you gentlemen are holding was our very first try after failing with a bunch of poor materials.
Okay.
And as you definitely noticed, the magnets are too strong.
Yeah, that you can't shuffle them.
You can't shuffle it. Now, I've learned how to with my very dexterous fingers and having no choice of very carefully peeling the magnets off. But after we got that product, and it was expensive, but it had to be done because it had to get in our hands. We had to give it to people and get their feedback. People like you have touched the cards and given us that same feedback. And so this is kind of a cool little world first here, little debut.
Nice.
Nobody's seen these yet. I'm holding now brand new. They're blank, unfortunately, so they're not going to show up very well on the camera. But these are blank. They look like just white magnets, but hold on, look at this. They're swap top cards, just like you have. Let me hold the camera better.
There you go.
It's hard to see because it's white on white. But what's cool about these cards is they have been perfected. So here's 3 of them, and I'm just going to treat them as if they were regular. Watch this as I shuffle them and move them very easily in my hand.
That is
really
a huge improvement. Huge improvement over the ones we have.
They slide so easily, and yet, if I take a card and shake it, or here's my camera right here, shake it, the magnets do not fall off. The magnet can slide like that. I can lock it back into place, and it's not going anywhere.
Excellent.
So
that is your swap top technology right there that you're showing off, which is absolutely wonderful technology. Tell us about the actual, what is the game itself? Tell us how you came up with that, the actual Shaka Shredders game. What is the game, and tell us a bit about that.
So just like the technology was a work in progress, and now I feel like we actually have the proper technology for a swap top card. The game rules also were a work in progress, and I thank you for your review and others for reviewing. So I came from the place of Magic the Gathering. That was my game. I played that, tens of, probably, without exaggerating, at least 10,000 hours of playing over the course of a decade.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
A lot of magic, standard, modern, vintage, even. Well, I guess not vintage, legacy. I had some old cards. I have some new cards. I kind of, oddly enough, well, I guess it makes sense. I kind of petered out after I started making my own card game, because I didn't have time to play Magic the Gathering.
Right.
But all of that thinking and that kind of creativity and that kind of game and complexity is the key word, was all in my head. And so we made Shaka Shredders, which is our first game with swap top cards. Very complicated, as you may have noticed. And it sounds like you guys are probably familiar with Magic the Gathering and other complicated card games.
Absolutely.
The feedback that we got was Magic the Gathering players weren't huge fans of the family-friendly kind of Shaka Kawaii sports.
Really? I actually really like that whole I really like that give and take, two teams competing. I thought it was a really clever take on, because it's no different. It's really no different than Magic. It's different terms. You're two teams working to get the better cheers from the audience.
That's great. I'm so glad you guys agree with this. I thought it was cool too. But some folks thought that these happy animal creatures. Where's my camera there? On these swap top cards.
Other way. There you go.
Oh, I'm lagging. There we go. They weren't appealing to them, and then on the flip side, people like my mom, who aren't big complicated card game, who was attracted to the artwork, but she couldn't grasp the game. And then the challenge becomes, how do we make the card game accessible, but not lose the competitive side of it? Because as you notice, there's tons and tons of permutations you can create with these cards, and that's half the fun, is creating these dynamic new custom cards. So we are now in the process of we're not dumbing down anything, but we're streamlining mechanics that hopefully make the game, first of all, more fun for people like you who are into competitive games, because you should spend more time thinking about strategy and less time memorizing cards or reading, squinting at small text in every card. So this is the moment I want to reveal something. We've been working with some great people. Kickstarter has been an incredible experience, not only just the backers, but the fans that we've made, and the friends that we've made, and the industry people. So we've been lucky enough to work with some. I'm not going to name them yet until it's time for us to relaunch, because out of respect to them, we're still figuring out contractually and whatever. But we've been working with some really cool, exciting experts in the board game space who have been consulting with us and helping us not overhaul, but just perfect the aesthetic and the mechanics and the rules moving forward. Now that we have the technology locked down, we want to make sure that we have the ultimate aesthetic and the ultimate mechanics and rules for this game. So this is kind of a cool little element. I want to tease this out there. This is what we're doing. The characters are going to stay the same. The atmosphere is going to stay the same, but we're changing the sport. Again, still on boards, but I want to leave a little bit of mystery and intrigue. So I'm just going to make some metaphors. Harry Potter Quidditch. Okay.
Oh my god.
They're on brooms, and they're throwing, quaffles, and there's these balls and a goal involved, but they're hovering and flying in the air. Alita Battle Angel, they're cruising down, but there's an aspect of you got to knock people off. So it's something between Quidditch and Alita Battle Angel on a tropical island with much more dynamic, in your face, I have a goal to defeat you, not just outperform you with tricks, but there's a little bit more of a mano-a-mano, let's do this, kind of a battle, if you will, without it being
the grudge match.
Right, exactly.
That's okay. So
we're adding
so this is now a
supernatural element.
This is now a collector's edition, is what you're saying. So I will
one of a kind.
I will treasure this because this is surfers and skaters, and that sounds like that's not what we're going to get in the final version. That's awesome.
You're going to get some. Let's just say you're going to get some hoverboards.
Very
awesome.
cool.
That's awesome. That is.
I'm a fan of the hoverboard.
And so what's cool is you're going to see the same characters on these new boards with a new attitude.
Yeah.
Same characters, a lot of the same character names, and we're already working on a cute. I'm not. I guess the word is. I'm a family kind of guy, so I use the word cute. That might not be the most appropriate word to use. We're making a cool music video, a rap video with all the characters in it.
Awesome.
That's. I'll use the word badass. It's pretty badass if I'm allowed to say that.
Yeah, of course.
And so the characters are going to stay the same, but their attitude, their ambition, and what they're doing on the arena is going to be a little bit more dynamic.
Very, very cool. So, tell us a little bit about the technology in the game and what it allows a player to do.
Okay, yeah. So swapping. So every card, a typical card game, again, using Magic the Gathering as a template. Every turn, you're playing cards. You're attacking with cards, and you're ultimately discarding cards if they get defeated or spent, like a sorcery card. You have to pay the mana, and then the sorcery card gets discarded. We wanted a card game where I'll start with the problem. Not to say that Magic the Gathering has, well, let's be fair, everything has problems, and Magic the Gathering is no exception. Not to speak ill of it, it's my favorite game of all time. Right. So I want to be clear on that. It's the level that we aspire to. It's the bar that has been set. But one of my issues with games like that, not to single that game out, other games have the same problem. There's dead hands where you're playing cards and then you just don't have the right mana, you don't have the right cards in your hand to play, and your turn kind of ends before it even began. And so one of the reasons I wanted to create a game that was modular was that even in that case where you don't seem to be able to do anything, what if you could swap card characteristics around and make an ineligible card eligible to play? Mm-hmm. Or you had cards in play, you had no cards in your hand that you were able to play, but you could augment a card in play by swapping a piece of one card with another. So basically change the board state without playing a card. Right. And the cool thing is, even if there's no cards in your hand, if you have cards in play, you can manipulate cards and change the state of the board to kind of fluster and flummox your opponent. And I always thought that was cool. The more things you offer players, the better, as long as it doesn't get overly complicated and bizarre. And so I think one of my own critiques of Shaka Shredders right now is because there's so much text on cards, the ramifications of making swaps can be intimidating for players. When they swap a card and they go, what did I just do? Like, everything just changed. I got to reread all this text here. I swapped a card. It has a new ability. And so thinking from the standpoint of we gave every idea that I ever conceived, I put into the original Shaka Shredders box that you have. And now what we're trying to do is take the best parts, the most fun parts, and get rid of the junk that wasn't fun, so that now you're swapping with real purpose and real function. You're not squinting at every card trying to figure out what just changed. It's a little bit more intuitive, but without any less of the flexibility.
When you say swap, you mean you're literally taking the top half of the card and changing it. You're actually swapping the top half of the card from one card to another. Show us what you mean by a swap.
Because you guys have been privy to this, but the people watching this probably haven't been. So here's two cards, and they look like regular cards. They got a back, they got a front.
Yes.
But the magic of a swap top card is these are actually each 3 magnets joined together, which is hard to tell because they interact with each other like cards. So let's look at each card here. This card is a card that scores points. And this card is a card that assists. It's something of an enchantment card that is going to enhance or buff the attacking card. So they also have different statistics printed on them that will synergize in different ways depending on the situation. So let's say this card was in play, but I want to change the value of the points that he scores because my opponent has a similar card and I want to outmatch him. I can actually take the character magnet off and replace it with another character magnet. So the statistics of the card have changed. So the power, the attacking ability has remained the same, but the character with a different signature ability and a different set of statistics has replaced that trick.
Yes.
And so this was such a cool idea, and I think we kind of succeeded. But where we failed was there was just too much data on each card. And that's kind of my own critique, and others have shared it. There's so much data on each card. I'm pointing at the wrong side here. There's statistics, there's a rank, there's a signature ability. and then there's all this text on the bottom piece of the card, which represents the card type. It's a lot for a new player to take in. It's even a lot for me to take in. As I'm playing with my wife, I find myself getting overwhelmed, and that's not a good thing if the developer himself is getting confused by his own game.
Right.
And so, but what's cool is people like you who are really familiar with Magic the Gathering and other kinds of games like that didn't have that feedback. People like you kind of said, I love the complexity of this. Give me more.
Yeah.
And the issue with, because we're trying to start a business out of this. My wife and I had a dream of making games our whole lives, and we moved to Los Angeles. We're dealing with the fires. We've made the sacrifice to come here and live our dream. And part of business is compromise. And it's not enough to please 50 people, because the minimum order quantities are a lot higher than 50. As much as we'd love to get funded on Kickstarter for 50 backers and give these people the game, we'd go broke. We'd lose a lot of money doing that. We already have, but in a good way, because this has all been a learning process.
For sure.
This has all been part of the growth, and it's been so much fun, and we're totally fine. Nobody worry about us at home. Our Kickstarter not get funded, but all that means is we get another at bat, to use a sports metaphor, and we're going to keep coming up to bat until we get funded.
Yeah. So you did have a Kickstarter out earlier this year, and it didn't quite get to where you wanted. You've obviously changed a lot since that original Kickstarter. But what sort of things have you learned from the Kickstarter process that have sort of helped you along?
Great question. So at first I was super, super bummed, because we set a very high goal of 50,000. And then within the first 2.5, I think we cut it off right at the beginning of day 3. We had raised about $6,000, and I said 6,000 out of 50,000. That's terrible. We stink. And I was talking to some people who had befriended me on Facebook, people who had done Kickstarters in the past, some prominent people, some people like me who are amateurs, and they were saying, Gregory, you fool. On your first Kickstarter, you set the goal at 50,000, but you were still able to raise 6,000 in 3 days for somebody who's never launched a product on Kickstarter, who had terrible, no offense to my friends who helped me do this, because they're awesome, but with no real professional help, you're able to raise 6,000. That's actually kind of a miracle. So I'm trying to look at this from the glass half full as opposed to the glass half empty approach, which is, the instinct that we all have when we fail is, wow, I stink. So there's things to celebrate. The fact that we were able to get that much at all is wonderful. We've learned we had to. One of the best pieces of advice I got was to reach back out to our manufacturers and see if we could renegotiate. The reason why we set our price so high was really because we had to, based on the prices of the minimum order quantities that we were dealing with. And we were challenged by an industry expert to say, hey, I dare you to call your manufacturer and just be honest with them. Tell them what you're up against. Tell them what your vision is and how important this is to you, and see if they will compromise. They said, come on, we live in a capitalistic world. They're not going to do me any favors. It's hopeless. And the guy said, just call them. And I called them, and within 5 minutes, we had renegotiated the price.
That's fantastic.
It gives me a lot of hope for humanity. It was a completely selfless. I mean, you could say that it's two things. One, undoubtedly, it's very selfless of the manufacturer, but then two, it means they believe in the product.
Of course,
because he wants to get this sold first, and then he can make more, right?
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think you've got such a fantastic new technology, the swap top. It's so unique, and to bring something like this to a card game, it's just I don't understand why it wouldn't succeed, because it is so unique and amazing, and it's just, they're so much fun to play with. They really are.
Oh, thank you.
They really are.
I always got one in my hand, and I'm just kind of snapping it.
It's like a fidget card. It's a
fidget
fidget card. You sell just the cards to kids who have attention issues at school. Just play with the card.
The other cool thing is the deck stays together nicely.
Yes.
So it's kind of, when you're playing with your deck and you want to examine your cards, if you're shuffling them and messing with them, you just kind of like scoop them, and then they're all together and they lock together in a cool way.
Yeah.
So what can we expect in the future with this? Are we going to see expansion packs, new teams? I know you've changed the the idea slightly. Are the original the Grotto Goons and the Tiki Tech Laser, are they staying in the game, or have those changed? Are we going to see new ones? Like what kind of animals do we see?
This is the big debate. Do you throw the baby out with the bathwater, to use an ugly metaphor? I don't like that metaphor. It's kind of a grim metaphor, but but everybody understands it.
It's based on history. I've looked that saying up, and it actually comes from a real thing.
Uh-oh.
It really does.
It wasn't. But we're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We've decided we love our characters.
Yeah.
Love the teams. We love the rivalry between Shreddzilla and Dr. Coconut. But you know what they could use is a little bit more badass in their middle name. And so that's exactly what we're doing. We're keeping the same world, the same franchise. We've added. This is going to be another teaser. We've added a villain. There's a reason for why Shaka Shredders Island has become so competitive. It used to just be a wonderful island where shredders were shredding, just having fun. But now, why are they so competitive? What happened? And so that'll be that'll be a big reveal on our new relaunch. You'll get to meet this arch nemesis, and is he really evil? What is his motivation? This will be revealed through stretch goals and through the Kickstarter campaign. We're basically going to make the Kickstarter campaign a whole lot more fun and interesting.
Awesome.
There's going to be a story being told. There's going to be reasons for people to share. There's going to be incentives for people to share. We got all kinds of cool add-ons also. One of our mistakes, we think, is that we didn't offer enough cool prizes. It was an expensive game for only a few magnets. And so we're going to add a lot more value. Okay. And then the best part, I think people are going to really appreciate, is we found a way to lower the price.
Oh,
and
wow.
So,
that's awesome.
I didn't think it was possible because these magnets are not cheap. We're not marking this up to get rich. We're just trying to break even. And so we were able to find a way to and not just like a few percentage points. We're talking like a significant price reduction. So I'm not going to reveal that yet. I want that to be a big thing, but it's a huge chunk off the price.
Can you tease any of your stretch goals that you're planning?
Yeah. All right. Without revealing too much, we love the teams, but we realize that half the fun with swap top cards is making your own teams. And so we want to offer players the ability to customize teams with total flexibility. So we're going to be offering, let's call them draft picks from a pool of animals from all corners of this island, who have, we're talking about dinosaurs, we're talking about mythological creatures, we're talking about all kinds of really cool animals that fit. So no matter what your aesthetic is, if you're into unicorns, we got you. You got a unicorn. If you're into dragons, we got you. If you're into griffins and lions, we got you. If you're into supernatural weird creatures with tentacles, hint, 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 we got you.
Oh, I'm with you. I'm with you there.
So you're going to draft a team. So you buy the starter deck, and then let's say you like 12 of the 20 characters, but 8 of the characters that you're not in love with, but you still want to play the game. There's an opportunity for you to draft your dream team of 20, and we're going to make it affordable, accessible, and give people the option. Because the reason I built Swap Top Cards was there's a part of our website on sunslap.com. There's a comic that one of my artists did for me. It was basically me as a 7-year-old, and it was something like this. I got 2 cards in my hand, and I'm saying, I really like this card. I love how powerful it is.
Yep.
But I don't like the way the character looks. I really like this character, but I hate the power. Why can't my favorite character have my favorite power?
Yeah.
And it's a very kid-like dream. It had nothing to do with anything other than
It's the Reese's commercial is what it is.
Right. It's
the chocolate bar peanut butter guy walking into each other. That's what that is.
Do you have a dream of seeing Swap Top taken on by games like Magic, for example, or other IPs? Is that a dream of yours, is to see your technology move into other games?
You know what? We're gonna have to hire you because you're already in my head. The ultimate goal, Shaka Shredders, is our first baby. My wife and I, we joke it's our first child. It's everything that we've loved our whole lives. It's animals. And now it's a little bit more badass, which was missing from it. It's action. It's competition. It's beauty. Yeah. And it's I don't want to use the lame word wholesome, but it's just it's mass appeal. It's not polarizing like some aesthetics are for some games, and so we want Shaka Shredders to be one of our. It will be. I guarantee this. No matter what, we're going to find a way to make this work. It's going to be our pride and joy for as long as we're alive. We intend to continue supporting Shaka Shredders, whether we have 100 players or we have 100,000 players. Doesn't matter. We're going to always be working on Shaka Shredders and expanding it, adding more characters, adding more expansions.
Awesome.
And Swap Top Cards are the perfect place for it,
Right.
because it's all these animals with different powers and different boards, hoverboards, surfboards, skateboards, and that whole modular aspect works so well. But the ultimate goal is to gift this to the world, and we want to see, because we came up with a few ideas for games. There's some games going on in the background, more party style games.
Okay.
Just say you can making memes with magnetic cards, images, and captions.
Yeah.
A cooking game matching. Let's say you're cooking a dish, a cake, and so strawberry pie or a banana split. And so there's some really cool kind of games for your crafting things. One that I'm really excited by is like a gladiator style game where you have a different hilt and then different blades that you put on the weapon.
Okay.
So you're creating custom equipment cards. And so we have so many ideas, but so little time.
Yes.
And you can only focus on so many things. And so what I'm hoping is after Shaka Shredders is out there and gets a little bit of buzz, we've already attracted two board game companies who like our technology. But because we have no starting place, it's like, what is it worth? They're like, how does $50 sound, Gregory? We'll give you $50 if you let. It's like there's no starting place. We don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know the value of this, and I don't want to be greedy, but I also don't want to be foolish. I want to know what the world thinks of Swap Top Cards, and so with Shaka Shredders being sort of the firstborn and the litmus test, we hope that Swap Top Cards can enter a lot of different spaces. They can be modular tools for board games to track information. Because these are these modular cards, if you're tracking experience points,
Right.
or loot or gold, just having 3 or 4 Swap Top cards in a package of board games could be a very useful thing to many board games to track information. This is an opportunity for me. I want to tease one cool new mechanic we're adding to Swap Top cards for Shaka Shredders. So we've added hidden powers now to our Shaka Shredders. So once a character levels up, and you're going to see how this works in the new rules, you actually level up the character.
Oh my gosh.
Right now, this is a little story. This is just a little a snippet of the lore, which we're going to replace with a power like a power here. And so as the card levels up, you're going to be revealing more and more talents. And
so now you have to take into consideration the base of the card in your character.
So this represents a talent specialization. So just to use, I don't want to reveal too much without spoiling things. So I'm going to use the metaphor of another game that I love, World of Warcraft. If this is your class, let's say it's a wizard, okay?
Yeah.
And then this is your equipment. Let's say it's a staff of some kind, an ice staff or a fire staff. This would be your talent specialization, whether it be Archmage or Warlock or something like that with different talents. So you're creating a card with a class, a specialization, and a piece of equipment. And so that's the metaphor that I use that I think sums it up nicely for people who are familiar with those terminologies. And it makes the card really, really important, and every aspect of it really important, and every aspect of it modular. The challenge is making it all work harmoniously with other cards.
Yep.
I never liked the idea of certain cards had to fit with certain pieces, because it takes the magic and the fun away of swapping cards. It's like, oh, I made a card, but it's illegal. I can't play it. And so we're trying to resolve it so that any specialization could work with any card. And so that all that requires is careful game design, which is why we're taking our time with the relaunch. We want to make sure we're launching a perfected game that's going to be really fun, really interesting, and fun to play multiple times.
Yeah. So, and speaking of relaunching, you are relaunching soon. You don't have a date quite yet, but keep an eye on your website, sunslap.com.
Yeah, sunslap.com and Shaka Shredders. Shaka Shredders. So sunslap.com is kind of our dorky company page for media. All the fun stuff is, and we're also redoing. So shakashredders.com.
Okay.
And at Shaka Shredders on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, all the social media. We always update that.
Okay.
Our Facebook is probably our one of choice where we update the most, but we update all of them at least weekly.
Okay. So go sign up for that.
Yep. Sign up for the newsletter at shakashredders.com. We're giving the front page an overhaul to reflect the new changes.
Nice.
The new boards. We're going to tease the villain, and so the homepage will become very interactive and a fun place very soon. And yeah, the game is going to become a bit more. Well, I shouldn't say a bit more. It's going to become a lot more exciting. And hopefully a lot more accessible to more players.
Well, we really look forward to seeing the new version. We loved what we saw here, but it sounds like you've done some amazing changes, really, really, fine-tuning the game itself. Greg, thank you so much for joining us for this episode. It sounds awesome. I can't wait to see the new game, and good luck with the new campaign.
Thank you very much. You guys are two of the kindest people I've ever spoken with, and I mean that earnestly. I think there's something special about Canadian people.
Well, it's because we're Canadian, eh?
I think that's part. I also don't want that to take away from your individualism, because you guys are just especially awesome, and you're Canadian, which is like a double whammy.
Thank you, Greg. It's been a pleasure speaking to you.